The first time Ethan saw him, he knew Caleb was rich. It wasn't the clothes. They were intentionally understated. A plain gray hoodie and worn jeans. It was the way the screen of his phone flashed as he scanned a QR code for freshman orientation at Northwood University. For a split second, the stark, black interface of a high-end banking app was visible, a balance with enough commas to make Ethan's eyes water. Sensing an opportunity, Ethan pushed through the crowd, a practiced smile already on his face. He grabbed the handle of Caleb's expensive-looking suitcase. A friendly upperclassman offering a hand was the perfect cover. Caleb's response was clipped, his voice devoid of warmth as he snatched the suitcase back. Ethan, unbothered by the rejection, slid a business card into the pocket of Caleb's hoodie. He had a whole menu of services memorized, rattling them off with the ease of a seasoned salesman. He could cover classes, write papers, run errands, anything for a price. Caleb gave a curt nod and walked away toward the dorms without a backward glance. Mike, who was volunteering with Ethan at the welcome table, clapped him on the shoulder with a smirk, remarking that his hustle had failed. He suggested college was for enjoying freedom, not scrambling for cash like Ethan always was. Mike didn't understand. For Ethan, this hustle wasn't a choice. It was survival. It was the only way he could pay his tuition, the only way he could even dream of staying in this city after graduation. The message from Caleb came late one night. His profile picture was a black cat wearing a tiny vest with a yellow duck pattern, a strange combination of coldness and absurdity. The text was simple, a time and a classroom number for the following morning. Ethan checked his schedule. He was free. He sent back his standard rates for different types of classes. A moment later, a Venmo notification for $100 appeared. The note simply read, "Easy elective." Ethan accepted the payment instantly, sending back a "Thank you, boss" sticker. When he arrived at the classroom the next day, Ethan felt a surge of anger. The class was cosmetics, theory, and application. The room was filled with women, save for 4 other men who looked just as uncomfortable as he felt. He sat through the lecture feeling like he was on display, sending a barrage of unanswered texts to Caleb. The professor, demonstrating a blending technique, called him to the front. The feeling of the makeup sponge patting his cheek was a unique form of humiliation. After class, he scrubbed his face raw in the bathroom, determined to demand more money for this emotional distress. As he was leaving campus, he saw Caleb stepping out of a black Cadillac Escalade. Even in the heat, Caleb wore a long-sleeved, heavy jacket. Ethan called out to him, stumbling over his words as he tried to explain why taking a makeup class with only 5 men required hazard pay. Caleb seemed unfazed, explaining it was the only elective left. Ethan finally gave up, waving his hand in dismissal and saying he just needs some compensation for the mental toll. Without a word, Caleb sent him $5,000, explaining that with so few men in the class, switching surrogates might alert the professor. He wanted Ethan to take the class for the rest of the semester. Nobody argues with $5,000. Ethan's entire demeanor shifted. He extended his hand, a broad, professional smile returning to his face. He declared his newfound love for cosmetics, praising its educational value. He formally introduced himself as Ethan from the computer science department. Caleb shook his hand politely, introducing himself as a photography major. As Caleb pulled his hand back, his sleeve rode up, revealing a dark, ugly bruise on his elbow. He quickly tugged the sleeve down, an uncharacteristic flicker of self-consciousness on his face, before asking if there was anything else and then saying goodbye. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The image of the bruise was seared into his mind. He knew that kind of injury, It came from being hit with something hard and narrow like a rod or a thick stick. His own father used to leave marks like that on him, back when he was too small to fight back. He wondered why someone like Caleb, who looked strong and healthy, would have a wound like that. He tossed and turned, annoyed with himself for caring. It was probably some rich kid's idea of a good time, he thought, trying to dismiss it. A few days later, while working a shift in the university cafeteria, he overheard some students talking about Caleb. They mentioned he hadn't been to the dining hall in days. His roommate, a heavyset guy, scoffed that Caleb found the food inedible and had been ordering takeout for every meal, which had ultimately given him food poisoning. Their laughter grated on Ethan's nerves. When the roommate got to the front of the line, Ethan, thinking of his major client's well-being, vengefully scooped only vegetables onto his plate, letting all the meatballs slide off the spoon. The opportunity was too good to pass up. He sent a message to Caleb, suggesting that since he was having trouble with food, perhaps he needed a personal assistant. Caleb's reply was immediate, asking if Ethan was mocking him. Ethan quickly clarified, offering his services as a cook, mentioning his part-time job in the cafeteria and his skills in the kitchen. He waited for a reply that didn't come. Worried he had been blocked, he sent a test payment of 1 cent, which went through. Later that afternoon, after his last class, he received a message from Caleb. It contained several photos of a modern apartment interior and the address of a high-end condo building. Caleb told him they were moving in tomorrow. When Ethan asked for clarification, Caleb simply stated that they would be living there together. Ethan was hesitant at first, but the offer was $500,000. For that amount of money, he would do almost anything. He quit all his other jobs to become Caleb's full-time caregiver. His duties included waking him up, preparing 3 meals a day, and doing his laundry. It was easy work, and it left him with ample free time to work on his own passion project, a submission for a 3D modeling competition. Caleb was a quiet roommate. After dinner each evening, he would disappear into a spare room he had converted into a dark room, the door always locked. He'd instructed Ethan never to enter. Lately, Caleb had been coming home exceptionally late, explaining he had been drafted into performing for the freshman welcome showcase. The lock on the front door beeped, and Caleb entered, looking exhausted. He just said the word food, and Ethan immediately started cooking. It was a rule Ethan had set for himself. The meals had to be fresh, never reheated. He wanted Caleb to feel his money was well spent. Usually, they ate in silence, but tonight Caleb spoke. He asked if Ethan could do his makeup. The spoon slipped from Ethan's hand, clattering into his bowl and splashing soup onto Caleb's white sweatshirt. Ethan apologized profusely, offering to wash it immediately. As he reached for the sweatshirt, Caleb misinterpreted the gesture, thinking Ethan was trying to undress him. He flinched and pulled the garment over his head, leaving his upper body bare. Staring at Caleb's well-defined torso, Ethan blurted out that he was in good shape. Caleb paused, looked down at himself, and mumbled a thank you. Ethan, flustered, grabbed the sweatshirt and escaped to the bathroom. A moment later, Caleb followed him in. The dim bathroom light cast shadows that accentuated the lines of his abdomen. He closed the door, and his hands went to the belt of his pants. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, shouting for Caleb to stop, insisting that his services didn't include anything like that. Caleb's voice was flat with confusion. He was just showing Ethan the long, faded scar on his calf. The performance required shorts, and he didn't want it to be visible. He assumed, since Ethan was in the cosmetics class, he would know how to conceal it. Embarrassed by his own thoughts, Ethan quickly agreed, promising to make it disappear. After consulting with his cosmetics professor, Ethan bought a professional-grade concealer palette. He practiced on Caleb's leg, mixing the colors until he found a perfect match for his skin tone. He assured Caleb that no one would be able to see it on stage. As he finished, Caleb handed him a professional camera, asking him to take some photos of the performance. Ethan played with the camera, snapping random pictures around the room. Flipping through the images, he found one of himself at the stove, his face obscured by a cloud of steam. When he asked Caleb why he had taken it, Caleb coughed and explained that the composition had a nice, domestic feel. Before Ethan could scroll further, Caleb snatched the camera back, claiming it wasn't user-friendly and handing him a smaller, simpler one. Ethan was surprised to learn Caleb's performance was a high-energy song and dance number. He was even more surprised by how terrible his own photography skills were. Nearly every shot was blurry or caught Caleb in an unflattering pose. After the show, he went backstage to apologize, only to walk in on one of Caleb's female classmates confessing her feelings to him. Caleb, holding a pile of costumes, politely turned her down. In a corner, Ethan saw Caleb's heavyset roommate glaring at them, his fists clenched. It was a complicated scene. Ethan tried to leave unnoticed, but Caleb called his name, asking for help carrying the costumes to the storage room. As they walked, Ethan described the roommate's furious expression, speculating that he must have feelings for the girl Caleb had rejected. Caleb just shrugged, indifferent. Suddenly, the heavy storage room door slammed shut behind them, followed by the sound of a lock clicking into place. Ethan rushed to the door, catching a glimpse of a familiar figure hurrying away from the small window. It seemed the roommate had gotten his revenge. Caleb reached for his phone but found his pockets empty. He'd left it backstage. Ethan pulled out his own phone, only to find the battery was dead. The building was supposed to be checked by a security guard every night, but hours passed and no one came. To make matters worse, Ethan broke the light switch trying to flash it for attention, plunging them into total darkness. Caleb found a candle from a box of old props and lit it. In the flickering light, his expression was as calm as ever. It was the first time they had been confined in such a small space together for so long. To break the awkward silence, Ethan picked up a pair of black cat ears from a costume box, mentioning Caleb's avatar. He asked what the cat's name was. Kitty, Caleb replied flatly. He then told Ethan the story. His father had forbidden him from having pets, but his older brother had gifted him the black kitten. They had kept it hidden in a small shed. One day, after dressing it in the little yellow duck vest and taking its picture, his father found out. He locked Caleb in his room on the second floor. Caleb jumped from the window to get to the shed, tearing his leg open on a tree branch, leaving the scar. By the time he reached Kitty, it was too late. It was the most Caleb had ever said to him. He spoke of his childhood, the immense pressure from his family, and how his brilliant older brother had shielded him from the worst of it. But then, his brother was killed, stabbed by a rival family as Caleb watched, helpless. His brother's last words were for Caleb to break free and live his own life. The family's focus then turned back to him. He was supposed to be studying finance abroad, but he had run away. The bruises on his elbow, he explained with a chilling lightness, were the price of that freedom. The shared vulnerability prompted Ethan to tell his own story. He spoke of his mother, who finally fled his abusive father when Ethan was 10. He talked about his grandfather, who had taken him in and saved him from the beatings. He described the apple tree in his grandfather's yard, a symbol of strength and hope. He recalled how his grandfather would tell him he would grow up to be just as strong, providing shelter for others. But his grandfather had passed away before Ethan had the chance to fulfill that promise. When he finished, he tried to laugh it off, remarking on the irony of being called a jinx by neighbors who now praised him for getting into a good university. The candle sputtered and died, plunging them back into darkness. Through the black, he heard Caleb's muffled voice. "That's not funny. You've been through a lot." It was a relief the candle was out, allowing Ethan to wipe away the tears on his cheeks in secret. After that night, their relationship shifted. Caleb started waiting for him after class to go home together. He even volunteered to do the dishes. They felt less like an employer and employee, and more like friends. At the end of the semester, Caleb promised to take him on a tour of the city as a reward for acing his elective. For all his time in the city, Ethan had only ever seen the insides of kitchens and classrooms. He assumed Caleb, a local, would be a great guide, but Caleb had no itinerary. He just brought his camera and wandered. The pace was relentless. While Caleb seemed to have limitless energy, Ethan was exhausted. When Caleb proposed another stop, Ethan begged for a rain check, but Caleb insisted. They arrived at the top of the tallest skyscraper just as it was closing. The observation deck was nearly empty. Ethan pulled Caleb to the very center, a spot rumored to make wishes come true. He wished aloud to stay in the city after graduation and to one day own his own company. Caleb chuckled at his bargaining with the universe. When it was his turn, Caleb closed his eyes. His wish was simple, to always be able to do what he loved. The whirlwind tour took its toll. Back at the apartment, Ethan collapsed into bed, feeling a fever coming on. He vaguely remembered someone entering his room, a cool hand on his forehead, confirming he was burning up. Caleb brought him water and medicine. He soaked a washcloth in cool water for his forehead. Then, consulting his phone for instructions, began gently wiping down Ethan's neck and arms with a warm, damp towel to bring the fever down. In his feverish state, every touch sent a shiver through him. Sometime during the night, he woke up feeling something hard pressed against his back. He mumbled for Caleb to move the thermos. A groggy voice replied, and he heard the sound of the shower running in the bathroom before drifting back to sleep. The next morning, his fever had broken. He went to the kitchen to make breakfast and found Caleb, shirtless and wearing an apron, making eggs. Caleb grinned when he saw him, but his smile faded when Ethan scolded him for not wearing a shirt. He might get burned by splattering oil. Caleb quietly went to his room and put on a t-shirt. Throughout breakfast, he kept stealing glances at Ethan, his face flushed. When Ethan asked if he was also running a fever, Caleb just gave a wry smile and said he might have caught it. That winter, Ethan found out his 3D modeling project had won first prize in a major competition. His joy was short-lived when he saw the name cred was not his, but Mike's. He rushed to the university, Caleb trailing behind him carrying their groceries. Through the office window, he saw his advising professor laughing with Mike. When Ethan confronted them, the professor calmly explained that it was a great honor for the department and that Mike was willing to pay him 3 times the prize money. Ethan refused. Mike sneered, offering 5 times the amount, telling Ethan he should be grateful he was even buying his worthless project. Just as Mike insulted him, Caleb burst into the room, standing in front of Ethan. He told Mike, in a voice cold as ice, that Ethan had already said it wasn't for sale. Mike, sizing them up, made a crude remark about their living situation. The next moment, he was on the floor, Caleb's foot on his chest. Caleb demanded an apology, punctuating each demand with a punch to Mike's face until the professor pulled him off. The situation escalated quickly. Soon, the office was filled with university officials and Mike's influential father. A man in a sharp suit, Caleb's family butler, arrived and handled everything with quiet efficiency. Mike and his father bowed in apology. The CR for the project was restored to Ethan, and Mike was expelled. When Caleb said it wasn't enough, Mike's father promised to send him abroad, ensuring he would never bother them again. As Caleb left with the butler to return to his family's estate, he squeezed Ethan's hand and told him to wait for him at home. It was then that Ethan was truly confronted with the immense gap between their worlds. Caleb returned 3 days later, covered in fresh bruises. He told Ethan his family had frozen all his accounts. He was now penniless. Ethan said it didn't matter, he had money. When Ethan asked if he regretted his actions, Caleb shook his head, laying his head in Ethan's lap. He said he knew how much that project, a model of his grandfather's house, meant to him. Then he added it was beautiful. They took a flight and then a long bus ride to Ethan's hometown. The lock on the gate to his grandfather's yard was rusted shut, so Ethan hopped the fence to open it from the inside. The place was overgrown but intact. The apple tree stood in the center, its flowers having fallen like a soft carpet on the ground. While Ethan cleaned the graveyard, Caleb explored with his camera. Later, it began to rain. Ethan proudly produced a small yellow umbrella with a duck on it. Caleb grumbled about its childishness, but Ethan reminded him of his cat's vest, and Caleb fell silent, holding the umbrella over both of them. At his grandfather's grave, Ethan knelt, silently telling his grandfather that he might be making a decision his ancestors wouldn't approve of, but that he was happy when he was with Caleb. That night, they sat on the low roof of the house, looking at the stars. Caleb, exhausted from the day's work, fell asleep on Ethan's shoulder. His steady breath on Ethan's neck made his heart race. Ethan carefully turned and pressed a quick, gentle kiss to Caleb's forehead. Caleb's eyes fluttered open. To cover his panic, Ethan quickly pointed at the sky and mumbled something about mosquitoes before scrambling back inside. The next morning, they were woken by the roar of a crane. Ethan's father, Frank, was directing workers to uproot the apple tree. Ethan ran out to stop them, but his father just sneered, calling him a bastard and telling him to get out of the way. He was selling the land. Just then, Ethan's stepsister, Sarah, ran out, crying. She explained their mother was desperately ill and they needed the money for her treatment. The fight went out of Ethan. He watched, numb, as the tree that had been his lifelong symbol of hope was torn from the ground. An unripe apple, just beginning to blush, fell and was crushed under a worker's boot. "It's ruined," he said to Caleb, a bitter smile on his face. "Let's go home." Back in the city, the tension between them grew. They both worked constantly, saving every penny. They argued about the future. Caleb wanted Ethan to use their savings to start his business immediately, but Ethan felt the risk was too high. Most of the money was Caleb's, earned through grueling freelance photography gigs. He couldn't gamble with the future of a man who had given up a life of luxury for him. After their worst fight, Caleb stormed out and didn't return for days. While searching for him, Ethan ran into Mike, who was inexplicably back in the country. Mike taunted him, gleefully informing him that Caleb was engaged. He showed Ethan a photo on his phone. Caleb in a tailored suit, a beautiful woman on his arm. Mike's final, cruel words were that Caleb himself had told everyone in their circle that Ethan was just a bedwarmer. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. The photo confirmed his deepest insecurities. Caleb looked like he belonged there, in that world of wealth and power, not sweating under the sun with a heavy camera on his shoulder. A call from a neighbor sent Ethan rushing back home. His father had suffered a stroke. When he arrived, he learned a more horrifying truth. Sarah had been missing for a year, ever since her mother passed away. Her university said her father had withdrawn her, citing illness. In his father's house, Ethan found a hidden door in a closet leading to a dark, foul-smelling cellar. There he found Sarah, emaciated and chained to the wall, her belly swollen with pregnancy. That night, while Ethan was helping Sarah, his father died in his hospital bed, choking on his own saliva. It was a grotesquely simple end for a man who had caused so much pain. Sarah's water broke on the way to the hospital. She gave birth to a premature baby girl, so small the doctors weren't sure she would survive. Sarah, lost in trauma, refused to even look at the child. Ethan poured all his savings into hiring the best care for both of them. He felt a crushing weight of guilt. He was her brother, and he had failed to protect her. He spent his days at the hospital, watching the tiny baby in her incubator. She had done nothing to deserve this cruel start to life. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from Caleb, asking where he was, begging him to come home. Ethan ignored them. How could he explain this? 10 days later, Caleb found him. He was standing outside the hospital, looking up at the windows. When Ethan went down to meet him, Caleb pulled him into a desperate hug, asking why he had disappeared. Caleb tried to explain that the engagement was just a business arrangement, a deal to get what he needed from his family before breaking it off. He pulled out a black card, his voice pleading as he told Ethan he loved him and wanted to help him achieve his dreams. But Ethan couldn't accept it. His life was a wreck, and he couldn't drag Caleb down with him. He took a deep breath and delivered the most painful lie of his life. He asked Caleb what he would do about his fiancée. Then he told him that Sarah's child was his, that he was marrying her. He said their years together were just a transaction, and now it was over. Caleb's face crumpled. He grabbed Ethan, shaking him, demanding to know what they had been through meant. He begged Ethan to tell him the truth, that he was being forced. "Can you give me a child?" Ethan asked, his voice cold and empty. The words struck Caleb silent. Ethan told him to go back to his own world, that they were never meant to be. The sound that came from Caleb's throat was a broken, strangled laugh. He shoved Ethan against the wall, his eyes red with fury and pain, his hand tightening around Ethan's neck. "You're cruel, Ethan," he hissed. "You'd better stay here and live your happy life for the rest of your days. Because if I ever see you in New York again, I swear I'll kill you." He released him and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the empty hospital corridor. Ethan slid to the floor, the apologies he couldn't say aloud choking him. 7 years passed. Ethan stayed in his hometown working as a teacher. He and Sarah raised her daughter, Lily, together. The ache of Caleb's absence never faded. One night, he searched Caleb's name online. The reports were a few years old. Caleb had taken over his family's conglomerate and, as promised, had broken off his engagement. He was living the life he was destined for, just without Ethan. One evening, Sarah, who had been secretly preparing, showed Ethan an acceptance letter to her dream university in another state. She told him it was time for them both to stop living in the shadow of the past. She and Lily were leaving, and he needed to go back to New York. She handed him a bus ticket. Back in the city, Ethan contacted their old friend, David. David was shocked but happy to see him, offering him a job at his successful tech firm. When Ethan asked about Caleb, David explained they were still in touch, but that Caleb became furious anytime Ethan's name was mentioned. David tried to arrange a meeting, but Caleb hung up on him. So, they devised a plan. Ethan would go to Caleb's company as part of David's team to pitch a new project. The meeting was a disaster. Caleb entered the conference room, his eyes immediately locking on Ethan with icy contempt. He didn't let Ethan speak, questioning the presence of new faces on David's team and dismissing them before the presentation could even begin. A few days later, Caleb pulled out of the project entirely, willing to pay the penalty rather than work with David's company. Determined to fix things, Ethan went to a private club where he knew Caleb was having a business dinner. Caleb's associates, sensing the tension, cornered Ethan and plied him with alcohol, demanding he show his sincerity. One of them, a lecherous older man named Mr. Wong, handed him a glass of orange juice, claiming it was a peace offering from Caleb. Seeing the undissolved powder at the bottom, Ethan knew it was drugged. But in his despair, he heard Wong say that Caleb wanted him to drink it, that it was the only way to get the project back on track. So he drank it. Feeling the drug take hold, Ethan stumbled to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Caleb, growing uneasy, had stepped outside to call David. When he returned, Ethan was gone. A colleague mentioned that Mr. Wong had taken him to educate him. A wave of cold fury washed over Caleb. He knew Wong's reputation. He ran out of the club, tracking Wong's car. He slammed his own vehicle into Wong's, forcing it off the road, and pulled a dazed Ethan from the wreck. He took Ethan to an empty room back at the club and forced him to drink water until he threw up everything in his stomach. The words that followed were venomous. Caleb told him he'd investigated everything years ago, that he knew the truth about Sarah and the baby. He knew Ethan had acted out of a misguided sense of honor, but he couldn't forgive the cruelty of the lie, the way Ethan had erased their entire history with a few devastating words. "You are not important anymore," Caleb said, his voice flat. It hurt more than a knife. Overwhelmed by the drug, the alcohol, and years of suppressed grief, Ethan saw the utility knife Wong had dropped during the crash. He didn't want his life if Caleb wasn't in it. He woke up in a hospital bed. David was there, explaining that Caleb had brought him in and had then left to systematically destroy Mr. Wong's business and ensure he faced criminal charges. Caleb had told David the wound on Ethan's wrist was from shattered glass in the car crash. Once discharged, Ethan found himself drawn to their old apartment. The keypad code impossibly still worked. The apartment was pristine, preserved exactly as they had left it. It was clear someone, Caleb, came here regularly. Driven by a desperate need to understand, Ethan broke the lock on the darkroom door. Inside, the walls were covered with photographs. Hundreds of them. All of Ethan. Cooking, sleeping, laughing, looking exhausted on their trip. On a shelf were 7 discs, one for each year they were apart. He played the first one. It was a covertly filmed video of his meeting with the first school donor. He realized Caleb had orchestrated all the donations just to have an excuse to see him, even if only through a camera lens. The weight of Caleb's hidden, unwavering love crashed down on him. Caleb, meanwhile, was in a panic. He had returned from a business trip to find Ethan's hospital bed empty. He was terrified Ethan had run back home. He drove to their old apartment, a sanctuary where he went to feel close to Ethan's memory. He saw the light on. He ran upstairs and found the ransacked darkroom, his secret world laid bare. Just as his phone rang with news that Ethan had been located, he saw him. Ethan was standing under the awning of a grocery store, clutching bags of food as rain poured down around him. He looked up, and Caleb was there, holding the faded yellow duck umbrella over his head. They didn't speak. They just stood there in the small circle of shelter, tears mixing with the rain on their faces. The years of pain, anger, and misunderstanding washed away. "Let's go home," Ethan said, his voice thick. "I'll make you something to eat." In the days that followed, they rediscovered each other. They made amends with a very confused David, who, after seeing the bite marks and bruises from their passionate reunion, finally understood the nature of their relationship. One evening, Caleb drove Ethan out of the city, deep into his family's vast estate. The car stopped in front of a familiar, creaking iron gate. It was his grandfather's house, perfectly rebuilt, down to the last stone in the garden path. And in the middle of the yard stood a tall, strong apple tree, heavy with green fruit. Caleb explained that he had started building it the year Ethan left. "I watched it grow from a sapling," he said softly. "I've been waiting a long time." Ethan wrapped his arms around him, burying his face in Caleb's shoulder. The broken pieces of his life, the uprooted tree, the ruined fruit, had been gathered by patient, loving hands and made whole again. He was finally home,